Things are going very well, as you see. It's been very strong. Mike Pence and the entire group are doing an excellent job. And do you have any questions?
Mr. President, do you believe it's inevitable that the coronavirus will spread across the country, and is it possible that we may need to take more stringent measures to contain it?
Well, anything can happen, but I wouldn't say inevitable at all. No, I wouldn't say. We've done a good job by doing it and combating it so early. We have the best people in the world, and I think we're getting a lot of credit for having made that early move. So, no, I don't think that's inevitable at all.
Mr. President, what do you need to see from Congress right now?
Well, I think we're working along well with Congress to get the various fundings that we're looking for. That's important in terms of stopping what we're doing. Some countries have some very big problems. We're working with them to help them. They're really unaware of, they've never done this before. We do it very well. And we're working with other countries, and that's very important.
On the Olympics, do you believe the Olympics should still be held in Japan? Are you comfortable with U.S. Olympic athletes?
Well, I think I'm going to leave that to Prime Minister Abe. He's a friend of mine. He's built a beautiful venue. It's a very sad thing if that would happen, because the venue's incredible. They've spent billions of dollars. But I'll leave that up to Japan. That's up to them.
And were you briefed ahead of time? What should the Fed funds rate be?
I would say that the Fed funds rate, the rate, as you would call it, is too high. It should be eased down so that we're competitive. Look, we have the greatest country in the world. We have the strongest country in the world. It's our dollar that the world relies on. We should have the low rate. But we have a Fed that doesn't agree with that. I disagree with them.
Are you concerned that the cut today will stop the bleeding? What do you say to your critics?
You say it. I did. I spoke to the leader of the Taliban today. We had a good conversation. We've agreed there's no violence. We don't want violence. We'll see what happens. They're dealing with Afghanistan, but we'll see what happens.
Okay? Do you believe this is a pandemic, sir? Is this a pandemic?
We had actually a very good talk with the leader of the Taliban.
Yeah. Is this a pandemic?
Do you believe that the Democratic establishment is trying to take it away from Bernie Sanders?
Well, I think there's no question. The establishment, the Democrat establishment, is trying to take it away from Bernie Sanders. There's no question about that in my mind. Now, look, a lot's going to be learned tonight. We'll see how well Biden does. We'll see how well Sanders does. I would have said 2-3 days ago Biden was not looking too good. Now he's looking better. But a lot's going to be done. By a certain time tonight, you tell me the time. By, California, we're a little delayed. So probably by 9 or 10 o'clock tonight, we're going to have some big answers.
What should happen, sir, for patients without insurance? For patients who don't have insurance, Mr. President, what should happen? Will your administration?
We're looking at that whole situation.
How so?
There are many people without insurance, and we're looking at that situation for those people.
So what do you say to Mr. President?
Whoever it is, I don't care. I really don't care. Whoever it is, we will take them on. Hey, the job we've done, we've rebuilt the military. We have the strongest economy we've ever had. All of the things we've done, I will take on anybody.
Mr. President,
And
get back to what I asked you at the beginning of the party.
You'll debate any of them?
Any of them. Very gladly. Very gladly.
Mr. President,
Go ahead.
do we need to have more stringent containment measures to stop the virus from spreading in this
Well,
country?
we're being very stringent, but we're now looking at other countries that have been badly affected, and we're thinking about doing something we may have to do.
Like
We
in
don't
Europe?
want to do that, but we're looking at other countries, and we're being very stringent.
Like European Union
Now,
countries?
I'm going,
sir?
but I'll be back, and I'll see you over there. Go ahead.
President, what do you say to
Say it. We're not looking at that at all now. There's only one hot spot, and that's also pretty much in a home, as you know, in a nursing home. No, not at all. No, not at all. But we're doing a fantastic job. The professionals are doing a great job. We're really happy with the job they're doing. They have been just ahead of it, and we're ahead of it by having stopped so much earlier than nobody wanted us to cut off access to our country, and I did it early. By doing that, that was a big step. Otherwise, many more people would be infected. That's a tough move. When did they announce that? A little while ago? That's a tough move. No, I'm not prepared for that. But let them do what they want to do. I'm hearing more and more about that. I don't think it would be necessary, no.
What other countries, sir?
That's too bad. Jeff, go ahead, question.
Cutting off travel to and from Italy and South Korea. You already put some
We're watching Italy very closely, South Korea very closely, even Japan very closely, and we'll make the right determination at the right time. We've cut it off, as you know, with numerous other countries. Okay? Say it.
Any other countries you're considering cutting off travel?
They are the hot spots right now. Right?
Mr. President, the 10-year treasury just dropped
No.
the 10-year just dropped below 1%.
What did you think of the Fed press conference, sir? Did you watch that?
I didn't watch it. No, I didn't watch it, but the
faced with a very serious public health situation. We have a lot of people here that are working hard on it and are honored by your presence.
Thank you.
And honored also by the presence of the Secretary, my boss, and a wonderful boss he is indeed. Maybe I just quickly say who else at the table so you understand who we're with here. Starting over here, Dr. Barney Graham, who's the Deputy Director of the Vaccine Research Center, and that's where we are right now. Next to him, Dr. Kinsmika Corbett, who is the front line on the bench making this coronavirus vaccine happen.
Good.
So wonderfully talented young scientist in our midst. You know Dr. Fauci, of course. Next to him, Dr. John Mascola,
Hi, John.
who's the director of the Vaccine Research Center. And next to him, Dr. Larry Tabak, who's the principal deputy director of NIH.
Good.
And we are all thrilled to have you here. I just wanted to say a word about NIH because we haven't had the privilege of having you with us before, and just to sort of set the context for this remarkable institution supported by your administration, the largest supporter of biomedical research in the world, the National Institutes of Health. We distribute most of our funds, more than 80%, to institutions all over the country. So when you hear about a breakthrough in medical research that happened at the University of Illinois or Florida, it was probably supported by NIH. We use the most rigorous peer review system in the world to decide what we're going to fund. And we do everything from fundamental discovery to clinical trials and everything in between. You could say we do Alzheimer's to Zika or A to Z or some version of that. And we also support infrastructure that makes it possible at a time like this to be able to move rapidly in terms of developing a vaccine. And you'll hear more about that from Dr. Fauci. The consequences of NIH research you could measure in various ways: extension in longevity, reduction in deaths from heart attack down 70% from what they used to be, strokes likewise, cancer rates of death dropping about 1 or 2% a year, HIV, which used to be a death sentence, now compatible with long survival, cystic fibrosis, a disease that used to be maybe able to get kids to live for 8 or 10 years. Now, just in the last few months, announcement of a drug therapy that means a lot of those individuals are planning for retirement.
Wow,
what a big
that's
change that
great.
has been. Economics, I think we could also say this is one of the government's best investments because the return on investment, every dollar that NIH spends is about $8.38 because of all of the other economic activity that inspired. But a major component of NIH, though it's only about 11% of the budget, is the intramural program. That's where you are now on this campus. More than 5,000 MDs, PhDs, and MD PhDs work here on a wide variety of things. A few hundred yards from here, the largest research hospital in the world, the NIH Clinical Center. Among their achievements, the first chemotherapy for leukemia, the development of AZT for HIV, cancer immunotherapy, now saving lives, including people who thought that there was no hope for them and are now being not just helped, but cured. Dramatic advances in treating depression. Lithium was invented here. Ketamine now turning to be a really exciting development for people with resistant depression. The first gene therapy for humans done here at NIH, and now evolving to a point where we are curing on this campus people with sickle cell disease with gene therapy. And of course, vaccines. Vaccines developed here for childhood meningitis, for HPV, for Ebola, and now we're going to talk about coronavirus. So for all these reasons, people call us the National Institutes of Hope, and we're happy to embrace that particular description. And you have next to you the probably most highly regarded infectious disease expert in the country, I might even say in the world, Dr. Tony Fauci. And we have been graced by his presence for many decades. And he is exactly the right person to tell you what we're doing right now about coronavirus and how we're going to address the need for a vaccine in order to tackle this really difficult problem. So thank you for being here. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much.
Okay, again, thanks again. I just want to connect what we've been talking about over the past few weeks. So if I could just get this slide here. Remember when I mentioned that the fastest from the time that you get a pathogen, you know what it is, to the time you do a phase 1 trial for safety. So look at what's happened when SARS was in 2003. From the time we got the virus to the time we did the first phase 1 trial. Remember, that doesn't mean you have a vaccine. It means for safety. It was 20 months. Then H5N1 influenza, we got it down to 11. H1N1 influenza 4. Zika, 3.25. And now We believe, as I've told you several times, it's 2 to 3 months. I think it's going
That's
to be 2.
fantastic. That's great.
So that kind of thing
Wow.
is what this place is all about. It's kind of like the SWAT team of going out and responding to emerging microbes.
Right.
So, this building, this entire center was first started in response to making a vaccine for HIV. But the crew that we brought together, and we brought the best of the best from all over the country. Dr. John Mascola is the director of this place. We do everything from fundamental basic science to the clinical trials. And I say this with some pride, but also with some modesty, is that there's a lot of questions and things that we need to do, but this group is so good at what they do that every time we have a challenge, and that challenge could be flu, that challenge could be Ebola, that challenge could be anything, we always turn to this team to do that. And it's really something that we feel that we're proud of, but I think the nation should know that these are the kind of things that we have available for them. John, you want to?
I would just like to also welcome you, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary,
Thank you, Jim.
to our Vaccine Research Center. We look forward to a brief tour for you upstairs where you can have Dr. Corbett and Dr. Graham tell you about how we're working on the coronavirus vaccine.
Right.
Good.
Just to give you a comparison, because we always talk about SARS and we always talk
Right.
about MERS and things like that. If we could just go through the slide, I just want to go to the next slide. This is an article that I wrote a little while ago, and I called it Coronavirus Infections More Than the Common Cold. The reason is, up until recently, coronaviruses were like mild things. They were just common cold. Just next slide. In fact, those are all different kinds of viruses. The ones with the red circle around them are the 4 viruses that cause the common cold. That was until 2002. Then we got a big surprise, and the surprise was, next, is that we had the severe acute respiratory syndrome, and that was SARS. Multiple years later, we got the Middle East respiratory syndrome. But a story that you may remember, next slide. In China, in the Guangdong province, the sort of history repeats itself,
Right.
Mr. President.
Right.
In China, in the Guangdong province, there was this strange disease that came up that nobody knew what it was. The Chinese didn't really tell anybody about it for a few months, November until it got to Hong Kong. When it got to Hong Kong, next slide, in a hotel in Hong Kong, and this was way back in 2003, someone from China went to the hotel, infected a bunch of people, next slide. And this is what you had. You had flights going. At the time, we didn't make any restrictions the way you did, which I think saved us a really lot of hurt. Next slide. And then this is what happened. There were 8,000 cases, 774 deaths. And that's how I get the number that I've been telling you, that the mortality of SARS was about 9 to 10%. If you do that math, that's what it
Right.
is.
Wow.
Right. Next slide. The other one is the MERS, coronavirus, which was the one that was in Saudi Arabia. That was also from an animal reservoir. Next. In fact, it was from a bat. Next. From a bat to a camel, and then for the people in the Middle East who got it, that was the infection there. So these are the kind of things that go from an animal reservoir to a human. Sometimes it doesn't go anywhere. It just goes 1 or 2 people. But sometimes it adapts itself to function very, very, very efficiently. Next. And that's what happened. We had MERS coronavirus in Saudi Arabia. We had a few cases in the United States, but not many. And finally, next. This is where we are right now with the coronavirus. And then just getting back to the last, we got this sequence about a week after the Chinese were able to put it up on the board. And next. And then these are the things that we do, therapeutics, vaccines. So we'll stop there, but we'd really like to hear some comments from you, Mr. President, if you want to.
Well, I want to thank you all. This is incredible, and I've heard about you, and I know all of you by name, and now I get to meet you. Unfortunately, I get to meet you because we're talking about this, but we've made tremendous progress. I know you're dealing with other nations to help them out because they really, they got hit, some of them very badly, and we're talking to them also, and we're making decisions as to whether or not we're allowed to travel, they're allowed to travel. We've been pretty severe in those restrictions, but I guess we did the right thing by being severe. NIH is the home of, I mean, I see so many different factors, and it's true, the greatest doctors. I've heard that for so long. I heard that from my uncle, Dr. John Trump. Big fan of what you've done and how it started, and it's really been an incredible situation. But the scientists and researchers all over the world, they say this is the best there is. And I think the world is extremely happy that you're involved. And Tony, your reputation is second to none. I think we all agree with that. You have to agree with that, John, right? And you have no choice.
Indeed, sir.
But the fact is, it is, in this case, it's true. And we're very lucky to have you. I will say that the vice president is over on the Hill. He's just leaving now, and I told him to stay there and finish it up. But we're doing very well in terms of getting the funding we need, the necessary funding. And I asked for X, and they want to give us more than X, and that's okay, as far as I'm concerned in this case, Francis. That's unusual, but that's okay. But I just want to thank everybody at NIH and all of the great scientists and doctors and everything. I know you're working around the clock. I know you've made some great finds already, and that's really makes us feel very good. We had some good meetings yesterday with the companies that I guess you ultimately would go to the companies. You'd have to go to the companies. So we had Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson and some of the other great companies, and they were very positive as to the outcome. And therapeutics were a very big thing, because I guess therapeutics can happen faster than the actual vaccine, and certainly the result can happen a lot faster. So we're looking for some good answers. But I just want to thank you very much, Tony, and we really appreciate it. And John, thank you. Thank you very much. Fantastic job. Thank you very much. And you don't have to shake hands with him. I see him every day, so I don't have to bother. So thank you all very much. Great job. Appreciate it.
Mr. President, can you travel to Japan or Italy right now?
Well, I haven't been asked to, but I think we're making decisions on certain parts of those countries, as you know. We've already made a decision on parts of Italy, and Japan is very unfortunate because I've seen the incredible job they did on the Olympics. As you know, they're building a facility. It's really finished. It's beautiful. It's finished right on time, as usual with the Japanese. The Prime Minister, a very good friend of mine, and Prime Minister Abe. And so I don't know what they're going to do. They have this magnificent facility, and I don't know what they're going to do, but they'll make the right decision. I know that. But yes, if it was necessary, I would do it. Yes.
What's your timeline on further travel restrictions, Mr. President?
Well, we're looking at different areas, and we'll make that decision with these professionals. We made an early decision based on a little bit of luck, I suspect, but that was the original decision on China itself. And China, in all fairness to them, they never blamed us. It was, a tough decision for them, but they fully understood. They were very reasonable about it. But that was a hard decision to make. But I guess we would have had a lot more people with difficulty if we didn't make that decision very early on. But we'll be making additional decisions as they arise, I guess, Tony.
And what about closing the southern border? Is that still on the table?
We're not looking at it very strongly. We're not seeing a lot of evidence in that area. We're closing it, I guess, automatically because we have a very strong border there now. We didn't have a strong border at all. We've built 129 miles of wall, and the wall area is 100% secure. But we haven't seen any great, I don't think we've seen any great evidence that that area is a problem at this moment, so we won't have to bother with that at this moment. Anybody? You're so nice today, I can't believe it.
It's the NIH, that's it.
It's NIH. It rubbed off.
Super Tuesday.
Say it.
Tell us about Super Tuesday, how you're watching the primaries that are taking place.
Well, it's going to be a very interesting evening of television. I think it's really going to be something. You've got some races going on that didn't seem to exist a few days ago, and now Biden has come up a little bit, and I don't know what's happened with Bernie. I think they're trying to take it away from him. I don't know if that's fair, but I guess it's politics when you get right down to it. What's fair? But I think it's going to be a very interesting evening of television, and because of the time difference, California time difference, it's going to go a little bit later than we're accustomed to, right?
And who would
And I will be watching. Who would I like to win? Anybody. I'll take anybody I have to. That's the way it's going to work. Doesn't
Have a
matter.
favorite opponent?
No, I have. I really just, we've done a great job. We have the strongest economy on earth. We've gone up, and as you know, China's economy has been hurt very badly long before this. We've done a really good job, and I think people understand that. And I'm looking at polls that are very good. But whoever it is, we'll take them on. We have no choice, right? Anything else, Steve?
Did you have a reaction to the North Korean launch of those missiles yesterday?
No, I have no reaction. Short-term missiles, no.
And back on the Afghanistan, was that your first conversation with the leader of the Taliban?
I don't want to say that, but we had a very good conversation with the leader of the Taliban today, and they're looking to get this ended, and we're looking to get it ended. I think we all have a very common interest. We'll find out about the country itself, but the country really has to get it ended. We've been there for 20 years. Other presidents have tried, and they have been unable to get any kind of an agreement. The relationship is very good that I have with the mullah, and we had a good long conversation today, and they want to cease the violence. They'd like to cease violence also.
The Afghan government seems reluctant to turn over those 5,000 prisoners.
Well, they may be reluctant. They've done very well with the United States for many years, far beyond military. If you look at all the money that we've spent in Afghanistan, we've spent trillions of dollars, and we're really a police force. We're really not fighting per se. It's a fight that if we had to, we'd win, but I don't want to kill millions of people. We'd win it fairly quickly, but I don't want to kill millions of people. I think it's crazy. And so we've been there. We'll be very, very soon. It'll be 20 years. And I said right from the beginning, not easy to get out of these conflicts, very complex in terms of all of the people you have to deal with, including, frankly, people in the Senate, people in the House, and a lot of people feel differently about things. But I've been amazed at how positive the response is to getting out of Afghanistan and to moving on. And I really had a great conversation with him today, yes.
The meeting today.
Considering new guidelines for nursing homes, given the cluster in Washington State?
I could ask you to answer that question.
Mr. Secretary.
So actually, we have been educating healthcare providers really from day one back in January about the need to be on guard against respiratory syndrome. And then when we had this case of the long-term care facility in Washington, we sent out special alerts to long-term care facilities to be very mindful about infection control, isolation with these most vulnerable of our seniors and other individuals who have comorbid conditions. And that's really what we've been seeing around the world is the prevalence of fatalities have been in the elderly and those who have other forms of medical fragility, comorbid conditions. And so really being on very high alert in our nursing home community is called for.
Mr. Secretary, could you talk about your meeting with lawmakers today and what specifically they're asking of the federal government? What's their biggest concern?
Well, I think it's the same concern that we've all had, which is getting testing out there rapidly into the community so that we can be testing as many people as possible. As you know, our excellent teams down at the CDC developed the test really in record time within weeks of getting the genetic sequence back in January, and we approved the diagnostic at the FDA under an emergency use authorization in record time. We've been able to be testing at CDC throughout without any backlog in testing. Our throughput has been great there. We've had 12 labs qualify to be able to do the testing. We did suffer a manufacturing issue on that test as it went out to the rest of the public health labs. We've gotten that issue solved in the last week, so that's up and running in the public health labs. We also have gotten this test produced by this contractor to get it out. So we will this week have up to 75,000 tests shipping out there to public health labs, as well as available to hospitals for ordering. And then something really important happened on Saturday morning. So one of the biggest issues around testing that people don't understand is during the Obama administration, the FDA for the first time asserted control and regulatory jurisdiction over what are called lab-developed tests. Before that, if a hospital or a lab like a Quest Diagnostics, a LabCorp, or an academic medical center would develop a test on their own with reagents and test, they could just do that if they were a certified clinical lab called a CLIA lab. But under the Obama administration, the FDA asserted jurisdiction and said, you have to come to us first and get approval of that test before you can do it. On Saturday morning, Commissioner Hahn issued guidance saying, under an emergency use authorization, we are permitting these labs, these public health labs, these hospital labs, commercial labs, to go ahead, get the test going, do your own test, make it available, and come to us for approval after the fact under emergency use authorization. That will make, as Commissioner Hahn has said, millions of tests per week available quite rapidly.
Mr. Secretary, can I ask you about the study from the CDC today that showed the Americans most at risk of contracting coronavirus are the ones with people living with patients? So should Americans be less worried about catching the virus from, say, people on the street or people in an airport?
So what we said at the press conference just yesterday is very consistent with that, which is for the average American in your daily life, the risk of getting coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, is very low. But if you are around individuals who have the novel coronavirus, the risk obviously is higher. And that's why the efforts we're taking with the state of Washington and with Santa Clara County and elsewhere in the country are around what's called community mitigation, which is to isolate individuals who have the disease, as well as to reduce social contact to bring the level of disease spreading down.
And Mr. President, I don't know if you had seen reports about the Vice President having shaken hands with students from a Florida school, one of whom had been placed in a voluntary self-quarantine. Did that concern you at all? What did you think about that?
I haven't seen that report, no.
I didn't see that either.
I haven't seen it.
How much money should go to hospitals for the uninsured?
Well, we're going to look at the uninsured because they have a big problem, and we're going to look at the uninsured people that, you know, this came as a surprise to all of us. It just happened. It shows what can happen in life. But we're going to be looking at the uninsured, see if we can help them out.
We're working, as part of the emergency supplemental, we'll work with Congress on programs to help hospitals as they care for the uninsured with novel coronavirus.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take you upstairs now.
Okay, let's go.
Guys, we're going, let's go.
And we're going to have Kismetia tell you a little bit about what she's doing, our young scientist.
Larry, come on over here. Come on, John?
the CEOs yesterday. You're giving a drug to a sick person. The safety issues are different. They need the drug. If they get better, you know right away. With a vaccine, since you'll be giving it to normal people, you want to make sure it's safe and that it works. That's the thing that's going to take the longest, because the phase 1, in a few months, we'll know if it's safe. Then you go into phase 2. That's going to take several months. That's the reason why when we talk about it, we say, even though this is the fastest anyone has ever done, to actually get a vaccine that you know works is going to be a year to a year and a half, at least.
The FDA likes to go up in 10-fold increments. So we can go from 45 to 500 and then maybe to 5,000. And we really press, and if everything goes smoothly, we might be able to do the 500 this summer and fall, and maybe we'll be ready by the next winter, to have a trial where we could actually see if it works.
A trial? Okay.
A trial.
Okay.
It's still research.
That's still research.
But to help you out with getting somebody better, that goes quicker.
Well, when you're dealing with someone who's already infected, we have trials that are going on now. The Chinese have 2 big trials in China of people who are already infected and are sick.
Right. So you say
and what you do is you have one group that gets standard of care, one group that gets standard of care plus a drug. This drug happens to be called remdesivir. So pretty quickly, depending upon how many people you get, if you get 400 or 500 people, you'll know whether this worked better than this. We're doing the same thing in the United States in collaboration with Gilead in the University of Nebraska, where we've sent the people in the United States who've been sick. Once you find out that that works, you can find out within a period of several months, and then if it works, you start the strip.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Any results yet?
No, it's too early to tell.
Could you have breaking news if you have?
No, it's too early to tell. Sorry.
Prevention takes longer, but
That's great.
Tony, you do have evidence, though, that this same drug seems to work in a monkey model for MERS.
Right,
So
okay.
it seems like it's on the right track.
Right, it's on the right track, but for those of us who've been in research, including Dr. Collins for a very long time, you never can count on something that works in an animal that's going to be working in a human.
Exactly.
It's a good hint that if it works in an animal and it works in a certain situation,
But
that's
not a
similar.
sure thing, huh?
It's absolutely not. It's absolutely not.
I just wanted to make one more point if we have time. We've been at this about 20 years now. And as Dr. Fauci said, this was developed as an HIV vaccine center, but the technologies that have been developed here to work on HIV, even though we still don't have an HIV vaccine, they have allowed us to address all these other problems. We have a big flu program. I showed you the models of that. We have done a lot of work on MERS and other coronaviruses.
Do they have a vaccine for that?
For MERS?
Yeah.
We have one, but it has never gone into a trial because after MERS kind of calmed down in the Middle East, there was not enough momentum to really take that into a trial. But it was because of the preparation. It's because of the new technologies that have been developed here and the preparation ahead of time to know what to do quickly without having to do a lot of research ahead of time before we did it.
It's fantastic.
And, this is just some of the things we've been able to move into commercial development. So our goal here is to find a pathway forward to make a vaccine, but then we need to have industry partner with us to actually make the vaccine.
So you're working in conjunction with the companies that we were with yesterday?
As soon as we find something we think can work, we try to move it into industry because they're the ones who can then do the engineering and all the work that takes out the industry.
The meeting we had yesterday, the person across from you, Lenny, Lenny, he made the monoclonal antibodies that we did in the trial that we showed it worked in Ebola. The person right across from you, from Moderna, is the person who's collaborating with our team to make the vaccine. So around the room were people who were enthusiastic about helping
The
us.
Ebola antibody that worked was done just in those bays across the hall, just right over there.
And that's very effective now.
The Ebola antibody, you can tell him that.
Yeah, no, it's been very dramatic.
The Ebola antibody has reduced the mortality.
We did a clinical trial in Africa
In the war zone.
very, very difficult circumstances.
Congo.
It was the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and more than one occasion, the team that was doing it was attacked, literally, violently. And we still did the trial, and we showed what worked in 2 drugs to anybody's worked.
Were they attacked and hurt, or were they attacked?
Some of them
No,
were
they
killed.
killed
Some
a
of the
bunch of people.
physicians
Killed
were
people
killed.
working on it.
Some of the doctors were killed. So Dr. Moscola, our director, is the antibody expert around here, but yeah, we do vaccines and antibodies.
Great job. Thank you very much. That's fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
John.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
That was great. Thanks.